Are we on? Are we on? Welcome to Basketball Heads Live. I am your host, Glenn Poole Harding. And oh boy, we have a very special guest. This basketball head is a Monsignor Farrell legend who was a 4-year starter, becoming the only player in school's history to do so. After graduation, this basketball head left as the school's all-time leading scorer with 1,447 points. He held this spot 20 years and counting, becoming the 5th on Staten Island scoring list. Man, we talk about buckets. 2005, he was a top 10 high school basketball performer in New York City. Word in the street was this basketball head was a walking bucket. He also played for the legendary New York Gauchos. Once his high school career was over, he accepted a scholarship to attend Staten Island's own Wagner College. You already know the saying, there's no place like home. This basketball head played in over 100 games and was captain in 2010. After college, he wanted to stay close to the game, so he began coaching at Susan E. Wagner. Makes sense, from one Wagner to another. He coached JV and led them to the city championship, but came up short to Brooklyn's own Thomas Jefferson. This basketball head also began to train some of the best players in the world from New Jersey and New York, before moving to become the top assistant at Poly Prep, who won the 2023 state championship as the only team in New York State to remain undefeated in any division. Listen, for all my basketball heads out there, if you have not yet to check out Poly Prep High School, make sure y'all get down there this year because they have a lot going on. Some of the finest coaches, not to mention a legendary coach at the helm. He'll be on the show soon. But tonight, we represent Staten Island. So, without further ado, help me welcome to the show, Monsignor Farrell High School legend, Wagner College great, and 2023 state champs, assistant coach, the Poly Prep Blue Devils, Doug Elwell.
Y'all ready? Y'all ready? Yes. You have just now into the world of chaos. Where everybody goes hard. Come on. Go hard. 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 Or go home. Never back down. You gotta hold your own. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard. East Coast. Go hard. West Coast. Go hard. Midwest. Go hard. Dirty. Hurry up, everybody. Get online. Buy your tickets cause the game about to start.
What's happening?
What's up, Glenn? How you doing, man?
How you doing, brother?
I'm good. Thank you very much for that introduction. It was great.
Nah. Well deserved, man. Listen, after, spending some time with you guys and watching you guys in action, I definitely wanted to make sure that, you are one of the coaches that I selected to be a part of the Tom Kachowski All-City game, man. I'm glad you was able to come down and help us out and be part of something that was great, and see one of your players, man, showcase their talent in front of the city's best players, which he did.
For sure.
And just in case y'all don't know who that player is, that's Connor Ego. Y'all gonna hear me talking about this young man all year long. When he was performing that day, you had no idea how many people was coming up to me and asking me, "Who's that kid?"
Yep.
Yo, Pooh, who's that kid? Yo, who's? I never saw him play. I said, continue to watch.
Yep.
So I'm glad we was able to help, man, and showcase his talent, and hopefully we can do it for the next coming years.
For sure. We appreciate it. We also appreciate it too. I know Connor does as well. So thank you very much.
No doubt, man. No doubt. Salute to my guy, Neil Barrows in the building. Cords in the building. What up? What up? Ayatollah Beats. What's up, people? Now I want to jump right into this, man. Who introduced you to the game?
So it's kind of happened organically. I really didn't have anyone in my family that played basketball really. So coming from Staten Island, a lot of people play football, baseball, basically. So my family was full of football and baseball players. That was really it. So I kind of just started playing because I was a little bit taller than everybody else, and we had an intramural program at my church that I was going to school at, and basically from there I started seeing that I was a little more athletic than some of the kids and stuff, and took a liking to it. So my dad just always supported whatever I did in terms of like learning something. That's what I'm trying to do with my son too. Just basically letting you try everything. I played t-ball, I played soccer, I played baseball. I played baseball growing up my whole life. So those two sports really stuck out to me. And then basketball started for me like third, fourth grade. That was really it. It's a lot different now, but in terms of kids starting to play and stuff. But I was introduced to the game probably like third grade. We played some intramurals, played CYO, and that's really it. So just organically just started playing because some of my friends were playing.
CYO was such a huge deal on Staten Island still to this day. It amazes me. And salute to my guy Neil, because he kind of breaks down all the other things that about Staten Island that people may not know, especially myself. And I play CYO, but it's not as huge as it is on Staten Island. You guys go to the state championship. You guys, it's a real big deal over there. Yeah. How has that helped you with your game and your development early on?
Well, it's funny you say that because I played. So the one thing that's unwritten rule in CYO, like a lot of kids don't play up, so you're not allowed to play up because you kind of just play at your same age group. Your grade level. It's based on grade. It's not based on age. So it's very different from travel. Things like that. And on Staten Island especially back then, there wasn't very many kids that like got left back or reclassified. That didn't exist back then. But growing up playing in the CYO programs, I actually, because I was so much bigger, because I hit a growth spurt really early, they allowed me to play a division up, so that it was kind of like more fair to play CYO, because I was really, really tall as a young kid. So now that I was able to get that experience playing against older kids, that really helped me a lot, because the second I played my own age group, I believe that was sixth grade, we ran through Staten Island. We went to the state championship, won the whole thing. But playing in environments that are very much like high school environments in most areas got me ready to play, in front of big crowds and stuff like that, because like you said, the championship games, and even if you have a rivalry, you're playing against another church that's North Shore, South Shore battle or something like that we have. Everyone comes and watches the games. There's fans from different schools that are coming to watch the games. You got high school coaches watching the games. You got little kids watching the games that are wishing that they're going to be you at some point. And that's what I always did. I was a third grader, fourth grader, fifth grader. I always watched the eighth grade teams play, to kind of get used to seeing those kind of guys and stuff like that. But playing in that environment really gets you to kind of understand how to play at I wouldn't say a higher level, but more intense environments, for sure, for the high school level.
Yeah, I've been to a couple of games at St. Joseph's by the Sea, and they do a great job of having the kids, highlighting the kids during halftime, while it's really packed, right? And people are cheering. So I understand where you're coming from on that level.
For sure, yeah.
For sure, yeah. What park was the destination for you guys? Like in your area, what was the park that you had to go to get your game up?
Right. So for me, it's very different for in terms of Staten Island guys that you've talked to already,
Hmm.
because I'm not from their area, so I'm from the South Shore. So mostly like I'm basically right by the outer bridge, right by Jersey,
Got
and
you.
most of those guys that you've spoken to already are more on the North Shore. So they're playing right by like the Verrazano Bridge, the ferry area. So for me, growing up, I always played at PS8. It's like a small, it's a smaller park in Great Kills. Not a lot of amazing talent, but I always played with older guys, so I was always comfortable playing against older people because I was always getting beat up on the weekends in the morning. I would go down there, play like 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, and stay until like noon, 1 o'clock, and get as many games as I could. But I had to earn that right to play in that park, even if it wasn't the best park on the planet, because I was young. So I tried everything I could to kind of just stay around some of those guys, and even if I wasn't allowed to play, I'd shoot on a hoop next to it so that I was able to like be seen that I wanted to play. So that was a great park that I always played in when I was a kid. But coming from Staten Island, once I started getting my name out there and I started playing more competitively, then I started venturing out into the Mahoney Parks and the big park in Mariners Harbor, and it's not really a park, but the Cromwell Center out by that.
Cromwell is legendary, man.
Yeah, so that wasn't a park, but it was like a park environment where guys were just playing pickup, having a good time. So I always tried the best I could once I got kind of uh, you know I wouldn't say better, but just more established, to just go as many places as I could to go play. So I didn't care if it was North Shore, South Shore. I didn't care if I was going to play at the Rucker. I didn't care wherever I was going to play, and I was going to be the same player no matter what. So I always tried to make sure I got different levels of competition and different styles, because for me when I was growing up, I didn't play like a suburban white kid from Staten Island. I was not really like a spot up shooter or anything like that, but I could jump really high. I was dunking on guys and stuff like that. So
Which I saw definitely. Yep.
so like it was different. It was very different back then, because that wasn't happening often, where a kid from the South Shore was being accepted and playing well in those kind of environments where most kids my area wouldn't go. So I always tried to venture out in different areas and stuff. So
Who was the player that everybody was trying to emulate, or let's just say the best player on your side of town that you was trying to catch?
oof. So it's a tough question, because the guy that everyone was kind of going trying to be like, or trying to get like when I was in school, was the kid that was my own age, Kyle McInerney. So it was we had a really our age group on Staten Island, in my opinion, is the greatest class of seniors in the history of Staten Island basketball. We had a bunch of guys go play college basketball, a lot of 1,000 point scorers. So very successful outside of Staten Island. So we had some really really high level players. So for our own age, Kyle was averaging 37 a game, and we were there were some players guarding him too. It wasn't like he was doing it against nobodies and scrubs or anything like that. He was getting Division I players on a couple nights in a week, and still getting 37, 40, 50. One game against my team in high school, we were seniors. I actually was injured. I didn't play the game, but he had 50 on us, and it was that. And I played with my teammates. I had Steve Rossiter, who was at Davidson College playing with Steph Curry, and things like that. So we had some players on our team, and he still had 50 against us. So
This is the tech. This is the tech I'm going to throw on Cal McInerney, a friend of the show. Definitely going to be putting the show up soon, man. 50. How old was he when he was doing this?
senior.
Oh, senior.
So
He did this in
He was already committed to go to. He might have even been signed already to go to Notre Dame. But it was he had. I mean, he had a game against McClancy, I think it was. I have a really good memory with this stuff. But he had a game against McClancy. I think he had 59. So, and this is like, we're talking about games where like he had to score that many points, or they had no chance of even being in the game. like the game against us, he still lost, and he had 50, and they went to overtime. So they needed every single one of those baskets. If not, they had no chance of even competing with us. But he's one guy that, raised the bar for us on Staten Island in terms of, like, individual success, and especially afterwards too, playing Notre Dame and having that kind of career he had there. But one of the guys that everyone always talks about in Staten Island is Andrew Wisniewski as well. He was a heck of a player at St. Peter's. He went on to play at Centenary College, and then he had an amazing career overseas for a very long time, playing in Russia and Germany and places like that. So in Tel Aviv, he finished his career in Tel Aviv. So guys like that, really were the bar, I'd say. And I've heard story after story about guys that I wasn't lucky enough to see play. Like the Sandy Brocks of the world, and Kenny Page, who I didn't get to see him. I'm a little too young to see him play, but guys like that. And one guy I actually played against when later on in life, when we were all adults, because I always heard stories about him, was Greg Pedro, who was an absolute beast from what I understood. And then I played him as an adult, and he was still giving buckets as an adult. And I was like right out of college, because I had known that he was good. And then all of a sudden I'm like, man, this guy can still play like this. This is crazy. So I can only imagine how good he was, back in the day. So, those legendary names are names that you hear throughout Staten Island, are, my entire childhood and as I grew up. So I got to meet a couple of them, which is pretty cool too. So, it's just, we have a small area here. So, we're kind of in our own bubble. So, those kind of guys, they resonate, and, you feel like you're like them. And then, you get older and we all kind of just hang out and stay around here. It's kind of different than most places. So, those are the guys that kind of, like, the names that we always throw around as guys that, like, set the bar for Staten Island. So,
man, and I was fortunate to get half those guys that you named on the show, and now more than half with you coming on. Rest in peace, Sandy Brock. I don't know if Kenny Page is still with us or not.
Not sure either. Yeah, I'm not sure.
I've been trying to track him down for the longest, but salute to him, wherever you are in this world. But I want to get back to Cal real quick and touch on that, because you mentioned something that I thought was very important. Even in losing, because, when we talked briefly before the show about the high school transfer portal, which there's not really one exists, but I kind of made that claim.
Yeah, we know it's there. Yeah.
So, but kids leaving because they feel like they're going to be the only one there.
Yeah.
I'll be the only one. And I'm like, so fine. If you're the only one, so do you have to go join with the team who just won it, or the team who's stacked already? Like, what is that going to say about you? And I just think that when we hear about players like that, and there was tons of other players from New York that did that and sacrificed and still went on to play, Division I basketball, or even had a good career somewhere. But what do you think is about the kid now that doesn't want to play by themselves?
You know what's funny, Glenn? I don't know if it's the kid or if it's more the people surrounding them that's kind of telling them, getting their ear and telling them kind of like, you're never going to be seen here, or you're never going to be, looked at here, and, all this kind of stuff. And, perfect example is like the kid you brought up in the very beginning of the show, Connor, from our school at Poly, where, he also plays on a phenomenal AAU team. So like the world is very different now that we live in, where, a kid can be seen at an obscure place because of social media, because of all these, media outlets that are out there now. So, in my opinion, it's more to it than just the kid, not wanting to be the man somewhere and wanting to kind of play on a better, landscape and stuff. And, for some you may have to do that, for some, it is not everyone, should have to do that, but I can definitely see, on some level where, if you think that you are, or you project to be a big time college basketball player, and you're playing in a league that's not so good, and you want to prepare yourself and get you ready for, that college environment and you want to play at a big time prep school or something like that, that definitely makes sense to me. But if you're playing in the same area and you're kind of making a lateral move in terms of like, you're going to a PSAL team, but now you're playing in the CHSAA or vice versa, uh, I feel like it's a toss up. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of, I'm sure for every one kid that it works out for, there's probably 10 it doesn't work out for. You know what I mean? Where you go from a CHSAA to a PSAL, and you're in, extreme environments back and forth. Like I listen, I coached in the PSAL, I teach in the DOE, so I know how public schools are run. I know how public schools go. I know how the coaching is. I know how, the attention to details are in most places. I went to the Catholic school my entire life, so when I started coaching at Wagner, back in 2013, it wasn't too far removed from when I was in high school. I was in high school in 2005. So I just couldn't believe the difference of the type of kid in both scenarios. Like, a kid from Farrell, if you asked them to run through the wall that was a concrete wall, they know they can't run through it, but they're going to try. They're going to try anyway.
Mm-hmm.
A kid from Wagner would be like, man, I ain't run through that wall. You crazy? So it's just very different environments where, it sounds great maybe, or maybe a good idea, but then when you make that change or when you make that move, you don't realize that everything else is affected. Also, your social life, your stuff in the classroom is affected, depending if it could be a good or a bad move. So I think that there's more to it than just like, having a kid be unhappy being the man and then trying to go somewhere else. Especially you mentioned Kyle. Kyle, we had an AAU team back before we started playing for like high level AAU teams that we all played together on the same team. And it was the Staten Island Lightning. We played in, regionals. We went to nationals every year. One year we actually came in top 10 in the country.
Wow.
One year. And we beat the Gauchos. We beat Riverside. We beat all these teams. And it was a bunch of kids from Staten Island. And we were very, very good. And we all kind of were like, man, can you imagine if we go to high school together? Like, forget Staten Island. We'd come close to winning the city, and we all went to different high schools, every one of us. So not one guy went to the same school. And we kind of spread the talent out. So everyone kind of went to their own place. Kyle went to Moore. I went to Farrell. Our boy Ramsey went to Newdorp. Our guy Tommy Downing went to Curtis. So there was a bunch of guys that just spread out. And then now the talent was all over the place. So when you played every night, it was competitive. No matter if you were, we all played varsity as freshmen, as sophomores. We were all up there. So we were competitive every single night. And, no matter who you played against, it was going to be a tough night. So I think that now some of the schools are, getting out there trying to get kids to go to their schools. And they're getting a lot of kids that are the same age going to the same school. And, by the time you're juniors and seniors, you're stacked. It's very different now in terms of all that stuff. So, we can talk about this probably for hours about like,
I blame LeBron James.
Yeah, and listen, it's also it's also the the AAU world is also with it as well, where you could be playing for one team one weekend and the next weekend you're playing on a different team because you're unhappy with your playing and your minutes than a week before. So it's all over, and unfortunately, some of the kids are listening to people that are looking out for more of themselves than the players or the kids, and not really getting that understanding that you're messing with someone's future, and you're one mistake in this process, and you're talking about instead of going to play college basketball, you ended up in a JUCO and maybe not being able to get to that 4-year college, and now all of a sudden you're behind the 8 ball. And now with even college transfer portals, you're not getting looked at as nearly as often because there's so much of a pool of players out there. So it's just a ripple effect of all the stuff that's going on right now.
Last year, I think out of maybe 2,000, 3,000 kids in the transfer portal, 800 were stuck.
Yep.
Right? They don't talk about those 800.
No.
They never talk about those 800. And, for the simple fact that kids nowadays don't get a chance to play against older guys like we did coming up.
Right.
It kind of helped us prepare ourselves and build this up for something greater as we got to the point that we wanted to go, because no matter where you are, no matter what level, when you go to college basketball, you got to start from zero.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We can talk about we can actually do the research on all the McDonald All-Americans and all the top players in the country that went to all of these schools, and just do a where are they now, or what happened.
Yep.
And we're not even talking about the kids who didn't make McDonald. We just talking about the kids who made McDonald All-American.
100%. And it's funny because I was talking about this with a couple of my friends recently, where either my class or the year after me was like one of the last classes to be able to declare for the draft out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
And there were guys that I played against growing up in AAU where they declared for the draft and they might have gotten drafted, whether it was, a lot. I don't think many of them got drafted as lottery picks, but most of them got drafted somewhere in the first round or second round. And one or two had, long careers in the league. Everyone else either, after 1 or 2 years fizzled out or, didn't even, pan to anything, the first 2 years. So there's a lot of stuff going on there where, you don't see that, now forget it is, and also that's also back in the day when probably a senior in high school was actually 18 years old. You know what I mean? So that's another thing. You know what I mean? I have a May birthday, so I was 17 during my senior year. You know what I mean? So I was actually, and it's funny, we were talking about before being in the NEC and stuff. That was one of the only leagues probably back then that was like the case. Like you had guys that were like legit, like freshmen, legit sophomores, playing and competing and stuff like that. And then, occasionally you'd have someone that redshirted and stay back and, do that kind of a reclass rather than reclass in 7th grade or whatnot. But, it's very different now and things have changed. And, unfortunately, this is the landscape that we're given. And, we kind of just have to roll with the punches, at perfect examples. I luckily I was not around for a lot of the problems that went on, but there was a lot of problems at Poly Prep with kids transferring, which is perfectly, it is what it is. It happens. But, it doesn't have to happen, but at the same time, it does. It happens everywhere. Kids are transferring from Cardinal Hayes, kids are transferring from St. Ray, anywhere. And they're all going different places. So it's going to happen. So it's just, how can you weather the storm the best, basically, is what you're trying to figure out every single day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. The acquisitive mind, salute. That has just always bothered me, that we're getting to this point now that kids in high school feel like if I'm not happy, I want to be traded. Right? And I just tell people, let's just sit back and see what happens.
Right.
Let's just sit back and see what happens, because time will tell. Time will ultimately tell, right? When you got to high school, how was your transition in from junior high school? And then were you always projected to be a Division I player?
So funny, funny story about that is, in the intro you said that I'm the only person at Farrell to be a 4-year starter on the varsity. I'm actually the only player in the history of the school to play varsity 4 years. Not only start. So for me,
hold on. Can you say that again? Because everybody needs to hear this.
Yeah, so I'm the only player in the history of Farrell to play varsity for 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's why I was shocked that I played varsity as a freshman. I did not expect it. It was not like there was not a closed meeting behind doors with my family and Farrell administration saying that this is what's going to happen and this was, we're going to do this and this. I was scheduled to play JV as a freshman, and even that they don't even do that. You usually play freshman ball, and if they think that you're more talented to help, you go up to varsity as a sophomore.
Right.
That's happened quite a few times, since back then, that's always been the case where you play freshman, you get acclimated into the system, they teach you what to do, they teach you how to play, and they throw you up the next year if they feel like you can help. So I was always said, back then I was told I was playing JV. I worked out with the JV team during the summertime when we played in leagues and stuff.
And was you cool with that? You was cool with that?
I was happy to just be in high school. I didn't really care about any of that. You know what I mean? So, and also too, like I was saying before, like I played on a high level AU team. So I knew no matter what I was doing on Staten Island, I was getting the competition everywhere else I was playing too. So, and I was just excited to be, playing high school basketball at the time. So it was more like I was living out a dream because, I've been spending the last, 4 or 5 years playing CYO, watching all these kids play high school basketball. And now I'm finally here and I'm able to play. And I was just excited to be part of it, So the week before tryouts, and we're talking, Catholic League, you can't have tryouts until like, end of October, like Halloween. So the week before Halloween, the varsity coach comes up to me during one of the JV workouts. I'm still working out with the JV, right? And he says, do you want to try out for the varsity? And I said, I have to go ask my parents. Like, I don't know. Like, I have no idea, So I go home, I ask my mom and dad. I'm like, Coach Janeke just asked me if I want to try out for the varsity. So then that's when my parents stepped in, because now I'm a 14-year-old kid. I should not be able to make a decision by myself at 14. So my mom and dad, we scheduled a meeting to talk to, Coach, and they said, like, listen, we have no problem with that. He'll be excited no matter where he plays, but will he actually play, or is he going to be like kind of just sitting down and practicing with the team and that kind of stuff? Like, is it going to be a move where it's going to be beneficial for him, this upcoming year, not just the future? So his answer was as spot on as it possibly could be. And as if I was in the same situation now as a coach, I'd give the same exact answer, where I'd say, and this is exactly what Coach Janeke said to my parents. He said he'll have a chance to earn it. And that's all I needed to hear. If I had a chance to earn me playing, I'd be able to figure it out. So I went down. I my first time playing with them, my first time doing anything with them was at tryouts. I had never met them before. Some of them I've never even seen them before around school. And I tried out with the team. I must have had a good tryout because they said that I was able to play on the varsity team. And then even then, we were practicing in and out. I didn't know who starters were. I didn't know who anything was going on. And then the week before the games started, our big tradition is Thanksgiving Eve. Everyone's playing everyone Thanksgiving Eve. You got the Catholic schools versus the public schools. You got, rivalries and stuff. So back in the day, our rivalry on the opening night was Tottenville. So I find out the week before that I might have a chance to play a lot opening night. So I'm super excited. And then the probable starters come out in the newspaper, and I actually am starting. So now I'm like, I went from.
Is that your first write-up?
Right up. And I had no idea. I had no idea what was going on. I didn't expect it. I didn't like, I wasn't promised anything. I just happened. You know what I mean? And at the time, the problem was that, I was so big compared to everybody else. So that was the one thing I always had going for me, was I was so tall. So my freshman year of high school, I was like 6'4". So, and I've maybe grown a half an inch since then. So I was 6'4". I could jump really high. So they actually had me playing. I started at center. And because Staten Island's not that tall, you got a couple of guys that are like 6'4", maybe 6'5", maybe a little burly, but they're not like, big monsters, back then. And I played center. And with my athleticism, we played a little bit more zone than man-to-man. I was able to block a lot of shots. I was able to get a lot of rebounds and things like that. And, that's basically how my transition happened going into high school. But I wasn't a scorer. I was like a role guy. I helped whatever I had to do to help my team win. That's what I did. If I had to block shots, if I had to rebound, if I had to guard somebody, in particular, if I had to, and actually at that time, I did a lot of things growing up, made sure that I could handle the basketball. So I sometimes even played like point center, where, my point guard was very, very good. Mike Mooney, shout him out. He was a senior captain for me, at Farrell when I was there, and I learned how to be a leader from him. And he actually wound up going to play at Malloy College in Long Island. So
Salute, Mike.
he was a heck of a player, great leader, and everyone knew that he was good. So what happened is a lot of times is a lot of guys that were, picking up full court man to man and stuff like that were pressuring the hell out of him. So I would take the ball out. So I take it out, I give it to him. If he felt like he was, being pressured too much or needed a break, he'd throw it back to me and I'd bring it up and get it to an offense. So I kind of did a little bit of everything my first year. And, that was a nice transition for me because I didn't have to do everything. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like they were relying on me to like score 30 points a game. It was nothing like that. Like, there was literally no expectation whatsoever. It was just like, hey, listen, let's just go play basketball and, figure it out. If you can do this, this, and this, great. If not, we'll figure it out, and it was like, you know what I mean? So it was a lot of fun to be exposed to that as a 14-year-old and start learning the process and everything. And that's when I started getting more attention across New York City, because when we go play, Catholic League especially, they do the whatchamacallit, the starting lineups before the game. They announce, the senior forward, blah blah blah. So every time we played, I never forget my first Catholic League game was against St. Edmunds at St. Edmunds. So they're announcing the games and it says freshman center. So when you hear things like that, especially now, even me, like last year our poly prep team, we had 3 sophomores that started. So when you hear things like that, you're like, wow, okay, this kid's only a freshman or a sophomore. And then you start thinking, like, as you're watching the game, like, man, this kid's got 3 more years left to be here. Like, that's crazy. So that was always something that happened too, is when we started playing against the city teams that didn't know who I was because I was young. I started getting a little more recognition with those teams and the city scouts and recruiters and everything. And that's when my I wouldn't say my recruitment, but my rankings and stuff, which mean nothing, but those things started going up higher because now I'm playing at a high level at a Catholic League where you're not usually playing varsity until you're a junior or senior. So it started becoming a little bit more realistic that I could play college basketball. Maybe not. I had no idea, what level, what division, but it was becoming more of a realistic thing where if I took a little more time to work on things and kind of focused on it more, because I was still playing baseball at the time too. So right. I was like, if I start focusing on it a little bit more, and start putting a little more into it, maybe there's something else can even bigger happen from here. And that's when, so my freshman year, because of my size, I started getting calls and letters from schools because everyone thought for some reason, I don't know why, I don't know who said what, but everyone thought I was gonna be like 6'10". So when
if you come in at 6'4",
100%,
the projection is right.
100%. But it's a funny thing. My dad's like 6'1", my mom's like 5'5". So like it's not, and I'm from Staten Island, so it's not happening where I'm gonna grow and be 7 feet tall. So at some point the growing is gonna stop. So
right.
I had like my freshman year, Johnny Dawkins from Duke called and stuff like that. Like teams, like it was legit, and I was like, okay, maybe if I worst case scenario, if I don't grow and I just get a little bit better.
Yo, hold on. You got a call from Duke as a freshman?
As a freshman,
from the legendary Johnny Dawkins.
And then I had I was getting letters from Stanford, Syracuse, all these things like that. So it started becoming where I could play college basketball if I really stick to it, start really paying attention to it and focus on it. Sky's the limit if I can do it the right way. And that's when I knew, like, if I'm getting these letters already at Farrell, there's no reason, like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm fine. You know what I mean? I'm good. I'm comfortable. I'm where I'm supposed to be. And I was more focused on the academic part anyway. So, if things will happen, things happen for a reason, and you end up where you're at. So, I was more comfortable being where I was, and I didn't have any problems being there. And we gonna get
there. We're gonna get there because you kind of breezing over this high school career like it was just regular, and it wasn't regular. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Shout out to my guy, Aaron Goldstein.
AG,
I don't understand how Staten Island let him come to Brooklyn. He had a great career at the very end, but y'all should have kept him in Staten Island.
Fantastic career.
Well,
Yep.
the great thing is he came back home to play.
Yep.
Right?
He's never
CSI.
he'll have a
That's
great
right.
career at CSI as well, for sure.
That's right, man. He's gonna make New York City proud as always. For sure, for sure. Who's this? It says, AG says, how many dunks you catch your freshman year?
Oh, a lot. A lot. I had my first game, I had one. So it was a lot. So it was I'd say I'd had, you play, 20 some odd games. I probably had about 15 my freshman year. Just comfortable. You know what I mean? And like I said, my point guard was very good. So a lot of times, a lot of things that happened was, we played like I said, I was a center and I wasn't a big guy. I played more of a wing spot. I was a guard. So we spread out the offense completely. So anytime that he was driving, I'd run to the lane. He'd hit me with a shuffle pass or whatnot, and I'd be able to like be close enough to the basket to dunk it. But I used to be able to get like, tip and dunks and stuff like that too, off of rebounds and stuff. So, it was regular for like in our games. Like now, it's funny now because if you watch like a game now in high school, someone dunks the ball, it's like the craziest thing on the planet. And when I was playing, like it happened. You know what I mean? Like you were used to it. Like it wasn't like oh my God, this is gonna be crazy. Like it was just part of the game. You know what I mean? It was just a normal day. But
yeah, but Farrell probably gets maybe 13 in the last 2 years. And you got it in your freshman year.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
that's crazy. That's definitely, man. That's definitely a accomplishment, especially for a freshman.
yeah.
That was dope, man. Can you say you started to come into your own? Like, salute to your point guard Mike for being a great leader and kind of getting through your freshman year. But when did you say you started to come into your own?
Probably it's funny because since I had a really good freshman year, my name was all over, and it started to become like, oh, this kid's gonna be like, the next, Andrew Wazinski or guys like that. And I didn't have a great sophomore year. My sophomore year, I didn't take a step back because I still played better. I had, I experienced different things. I was in a different position.
Right.
I started moving. I haven't grown, so I started moving out from playing center and was playing more on the wing now. So my game changed completely. My game went from being the guy that was like kind of like cleaning up messes and doing a little bit of the dirty work, to now being like asked to do a lot. You know what I mean? So it was that was probably more of an adjustment than actually going and playing my freshman year, because I was starting being asked to do things that I normally didn't do. Like I wasn't, and I was a little kid, and when I was playing like AAU and stuff, I wasn't like the main scorer. Like we didn't do that. Like it was like kind of everyone did it by committee, and a lot of times I was, facilitating, passing the ball. Like that's probably my best strength as a basketball player is my passing. So one of the things that happened was now guys were just like, all right, like it's your time. Like you got to score now. And I wasn't really ready for that. Like my game was good, but like I wasn't ready to take that leap as a scorer because I wasn't a great shooter, and I was more of a guy that like mid-range jumpers and things like that. And my handle wasn't like crisp or tight. It was more like I could just get to where I wanted to get to and just kind of rise over people. And basically after that second year, I realized there's a lot of things I needed to work on that I didn't have yet. And and as soon as the season was ending sophomore year, I started working on those things. And that's where I really turned the corner. And I think that it was funny because Kyle McElhinney did the same thing. So our two sophomore years, he had a really good sophomore year also. But that sophomore year to junior year, that's when the switch turned. And I actually, so after that year, I started working with Bobby Mahala, who is a legend on Staten Island, Farrell legend, and he went to Wagner College. He's actually he was on a Wagner College team that beat Duke back in the 60s. I think it was in the 70s. And he was a shooting coach in New Jersey. So my mom and dad actually used to drive me out to Jersey, and he completely changed the way I shot a basketball. And all of a sudden now I'm hitting threes. I'm like, catching and shooting. So now I have all three things now. I can mid-range pull-ups, shooting over guys, and I get to the rim, dunk on guys, and now all of a sudden I got a 3. So now that's when I really kind of turned the corner on everything. And going into my junior year, excuse me, I then had already committed to Wagner because that attention I got in the summertime from the changes I made in my game, I started getting offers. And I like I said, I was a good player, but that just kind of turned everything up a notch where I'm like, all right, I now I can really play because now I can do all the things that I couldn't do before, and I can still do the things I could do before. So that's when I kind of made that adjustment. So sophomore to junior year.
So Mr. Coach E.B. Ball or Ed Ball, E.B. Ball, Coach E.B. Ball said your junior year you showed out.
Oh yeah,
you know that was the breakout year. Now listen, I don't want to sound like the old dude, right? when I look at a lot of these posts, and the only time I would see a post if someone sends it to me, because I'm posting so much and doing things for my page, I don't have time to scroll.
Right.
So, but I do get a lot of people sending me players' offers.
Mm-hmm.
Now, me knowing the game the way I do and knowing a ton of college coaches and a lot of them being my friends,
sure,
I know the game, right? So when you see these kids, you know, their senior year, they going to junior college, but then from their freshman to their senior year, they're getting all these offers from all these ridiculous colleges.
Yep.
It just doesn't add up. And I think other kids look at that and feel away, or parents feel away. Now, programs are telling kids, you come here, I'll get you offers. That's just like me calling my guys to be like, yo, can I put your logo on this kid picture?
100%.
Trust me.
100%.
You know, and I think that's kind of hurting the game, because a college cannot offer a kid if he's a freshman or sophomore. It's not real.
Right.
One of my guys, a friend of mine, so I came up under me, Brian Nash, who's the basketball director for ING.
Yep.
He'll tell you, like, yo, Glenn, this is not real. Like, if that's true, ask him to offer you a scholarship today, if that's the truth.
Right.
Right. So what I'm saying is that the game has changed so much now to where you had to do certain things to put yourself in a position to be successful. Right. You had to check yourself and know some of the things that you are lacking in. Or coaches would let you know, hey, listen, yo, Doug, get that jump shot straight. You know, keep working on your handle. You know, stretch that ball out to 3. You can shoot the mid-range. Maybe your form is a little off. And then you working on things to put yourself in position. Yep. It's not 100%. You didn't just want to jump the line. And I think what's happening with these posts, because kids are jumping the line.
And that's part of what happened with me. I had a better year my sophomore year. I scored more points. That doesn't mean I actually had a better year just because I scored more points. You know what I mean? Like I maybe had more of an effect on the game, but doesn't actually mean I had a better year. You know, but I went to a couple of camps, and when I was a freshman going into sophomore going to junior, and I believe it was, the names have changed so much, but I believe it was Eastern Invitational, and that was like a big one back when I was in high school, and I had a coach, and now back then, I don't know if the rules have changed now or what they were back then, but Division I assistant coaches were working these camps as counselors. Yep. So my camp counselor was the assistant coach from Brown, and you know, I'm like a layup for Brown. You know what I mean? Brown, Columbia, Yale. That's like, you know, how could you not take a look at me? You know, and the Brown coach, I think I still have the report card actually, because I keep all that stuff from when I was a kid, and he wrote on the thing like, you know, work on your foot speed and then work on your shot. If you can work on these two things, I'll be talking to you next year. Like something like that was said in the thing. I took that, you know, and I was like, you know what? I need to get this into my game. If I do, you know, if Brown is gonna talk to me about this is something that I need to work on, you know. So, And that's when I started making those adjustments. That's when all the offers started coming, and that's when visits started happening and stuff like that. But I did everything so quickly. I did everything very early on, and the second that I did what I did, I committed, and then like someone just said, I don't know who that was, but someone said my junior year I exploded. I
Yeah,
did.
Coach E-Ball said that. Yeah.
I had a stretch where I had like 30 plus in like 5 games, and it was different level. Like I was playing so well, and then all of a sudden I started getting calls from other schools, even though I committed already. So now I'm like, oh man, like this is getting crazy. And then that summer, I made the change and I started playing with the Gauchos. So then that really took everything to another level because the Gauchos were funny. They're always good guys. All those guys that are out there. I know a bunch of the guys are still involved now. And they were like, don't take that offer, man. Like, wait. They're like, wait, you're gonna see what's gonna happen. You start playing with us on the circuits and stuff like that. You're gonna see what's gonna happen and who's gonna come knocking. Let's just hold off and wait and see what happens. And unfortunately for me, I didn't wait. I took it. I committed, and again, rest is history. But at the same time, like if I didn't make those adjustments, that would never have happened. I wouldn't have gotten any offers. I had, my sophomore going to junior year, I had offers from mostly Patriot League schools and NEC schools and things like that. And then when I started getting the junior year where I didn't basically kind of just played freely and just had fun, where I didn't have to worry about, playing for a scholarship anymore because I had already had it. It was bananas, man. I was, I had a game against Peters at Farrell where, and how those environments are and Staten Island.
Pure madness.
And I had, and I don't know what happened, but I had 35. I had 7 dunks. It was we won by like 40 or 50. It was just absolutely.
Hold on. 35, 7 dunks.
Yeah,
it was bad. I don't know. That's huge.
Yeah, it was
huge
bad.
on the pro level.
Yeah, it was bad. That's when I kind of was like, I was feeling good. Like I had a game against C where I had like 32. Peters I had 35. I had a game against McClancy. I had like 29. So like there was like a week and a half straight where I just was on a tear. And
all right, Doug. Hold on. I'm gonna cut you off on this one.
Yep.
My apologies.
Yep. Go ahead.
What happened when you and Cal played against each other, or did you guys?
Yeah. So basically, what happened most of the time is, we kind of. The gym was always packed every time because it was always we were always the better team because we were just very solid throughout and our team was very good, and it was just fun because you got to see him play against a good team, like you know what I mean. Like he had to work for everything that we, that he got. We didn't like double or triple or anything like that. We played straight up, man-to-man defense, and we were.
Did you guard him? Did you guard him?
I did my junior year, I believe, but senior year I did not. No chance. No, I had to rest a little bit because that was no way. There's no way. And we had my senior year. We were one of the best teams in the city my senior year, so we were very good. So we had some guys that were guards that could, chase him around and run after him and because he was never tired. He was never tired. So, for us, we made sure that we took the proper channels to. Make sure that we had our upper hand in most games that we're playing. But yeah, if we played against him, he would have somewhere in the 30s, and I would always have somewhere in the 20s because I just didn't get as many shots as him because my team was a little stronger. So I had to, not had to, but I always got my teammates involved in terms of, and they were my teammates were better. So that's part of it. I had another Division I teammate. My senior year I had 2 Division I teammates.
Wow.
So my center was Steve Rossiter, who played at Davidson. He was the center for Steph Curry's magical runs in the Elite Eight and stuff like that. And then my point guard was James Hett, who played at Monmouth all 4 years at Monmouth. So started every game since his freshman year through his senior year at Monmouth, and so we were good. So it was more like we were just more balanced. Like if I had 25, Steve had 23. So like it was more like we shared the load. And if we were playing against Kyle, and we would have me and him combined would have 45, 50, and then Kyle would have his 35, 36. And that would be the difference of the game. You know what I mean? We won by 20, and because me and him outscored him. So it would be like that. So,
Man,
but,
you gotta invite your other teammates on, man. You gotta get these guys on the show, man. Show them some love, man.
for sure.
For sure. So you got to the point where, you guys are solid. You guys are able to beat some of the better teams and better players. Are you surprised that today Monsignor Farrell still one of the top teams in all of New York State? Because they proved it last year.
Yeah, no, I'm not surprised at all. I'm not surprised. It's funny because after we graduated, there was probably a lull, like for like maybe like 5 or 6 years, where like
Yep.
they were middle of the pack. They were good. They were solid. They weren't anything to write home about. There was a coaching change that took place, and Coach Dunn took over. And when Coach Dunn took over, the program completely changed. Those guys, they run, like we played against last year at Poly. We played against Albany Academy, who they beat in the championship game in Glen Falls, and we played them, and I was like, "There's no way Farrell can beat these guys. There's no way." And then I started watching Farrell play more and more, and how they went about their business, and I was like, you know what? Because I was more concerned because when I saw them play, as I watched the game on I forget what it was, local live or whatever it was, but they played against Transit Tech in the finals here, and that's where I was like, man, it doesn't matter. They're gonna win the whole damn thing because it won't matter because they just do what they do perfectly. Like that's what they play their style of basketball. They make you have to adjust to them, and they do a phenomenal job. Like they run it like a college program because every single kid is equipped to handle the pressure. Every single kid knows exactly what's going on, whether it's their team or the other team, in terms of like scouting reports and stuff like that. So I feel like they're just extreme. Their coaching staff is just phenomenal. They make sure that their guys are completely prepared all the time. And even this year, like you gotta circle this date, man. Farrell versus Poly Prep.
Doug,
December.
just send me the date. I will lock it in,
December
and definitely
10th.
will be there.
December 10th at Poly, so it's going to be a good one. But they lost a bunch of guys that started for them last year, and they're still going to be good. You know what I mean? It won't matter because they lost PJ Scalisi, who was an amazing basketball player who's playing at RPI right now. The point guard is playing, I think, at Manhattanville, and they're Division III basketball players, but because of how hard they play and how like they're well-oiled machines. You know what I mean? They take charges. They do all the things that guys don't want to do. They do it. So this year, they lost so many guys, but I can guarantee you they'll be right back to where they are because that's what they do.
Man, they lost to Nazareth twice and beat them in the city championship.
100%.
It's so hard to beat someone 3 times, and Nazareth, they moved to the AA. They're going to be stacked. So.
Shout out to Coach Gary Irving too. He does a great job.
For sure, does an excellent job. Shout out to my guy G. But Farrell is going to be at it again this year. So 100%. Watch out for Farrell.
100%, always there.
Man, you get to the NEC, the Northeast Conference, right? You're highly touted coming in.
Mm-hmm.
People know who you are. You're right there on the island. How was the transition and the camaraderie with the other players that's already there?
Yeah, that was the hardest transition in my entire life. Not even close. It was such a difference, and that's why I was saying before, when we're talking about the transfer portal, where because at our practices, right, in our games and stuff like that, like we were competitive, we were good, it was great. But then when I got to Wagner, I'm playing against someone good every single day at practice. Every workout I'm in, I got someone that's the same size as me, the same position as me, the same athleticism as me, maybe even more athletic than I am, and stronger. So now every single day, you're going against someone that's your equal. And that was something I was not used to doing because, and that's the problem. And that's part of why some kids leave Staten Island is because, your first 5 guys, your first 6 guys are probably pretty good, solid. After those 6 guys, now there's a big decrease most of the time on a team. And, there's a lot of guys that are playing just because they want to be part of a team. They want to be part of a club, they're on the team. And the guys on my team, they worked their butts off. I had some really good teammates. I had some really good guys, but they were not the guys that I was playing against in college. So in that sense, that kind of hurt me a little bit because now to go against these guys every single day and have to work my butt off every single day and, at the same time I never lifted a weight before in my entire life. So now I'm lifting weights.
Same here, yeah.
My shot's changing a little bit because it's a little uncomfortable. I'm sore. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of things that are going into the basketball workouts that I was not doing prior. So my jumping seemed like it decreased a little bit because I was getting a little bit like robotic because I felt like I was lifting so much and stuff like that. So just a lot of things changed. I think that was probably the biggest move for me because, then we talked about it before as well, like not being happy somewhere. So I go in and I'm, like you said, I'm this highly touted, player. I'm preseason first team all rookie for the NEC because of my ranking and stuff like that. And I go in and I'm like, there's a very highly touted group that came in before me. There was a couple of seniors on the team, but most of the guys were between sophomore and junior year. So a lot of older guys that were there. And my first couple of scrimmages, I played pretty well. I was like, oh, okay, I'm right. I got this. It kind of felt like a glorified AAU game,
Right.
every game. You know what I mean? So I'm like, oh, this is good. It's not bad. Like we played against St. Peter's in Jersey, against Kiki Clark in Jersey, who was an absolute bucket and a half.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And I could never forget. I was like, I had like 12 points in the scrimmage, and I'm like, all right, I'm good. Like I can play.
It's not the same.
Yeah, not even close. Not even close. That 12, like, because now here's what happened. I'm playing, and I'm thinking I'm doing a great job, and then all of a sudden, we get to the locker room the next day, and we're watching the film, and he's like, "You missed this assignment. You missed this box out. You missed this. You missed this. You missed this." And I'm like, "Man, I played like shit." You know what I mean? Like I thought I did well, and now I'm sitting here looking at my progression here in this game, and I didn't do well at all. And that really was my first experience where I was just like, man, like this is going to be a tough year. It's going to be tough because my coach was very particular. He was very like, if you didn't do X, Y, and Z, you weren't playing. Like, and you can get in the game, you make one mistake, you were coming out, and you may never see the court again that whole game because you made that one mistake. So then you start playing with a little bit of eyes in the back of your head where you get on the court and you're a little nervous because if you make that one mistake, you're done for the day. Whether it's a box out, whether it's a guy scoring on you, whatever the case may be, you just felt like, there was no way that I could play and be successful in this kind of environment. And my freshman year, I played 19 games out of 31, and I played 5 minutes a game. So it was a big, rude awakening for me because my whole life I just played in every single game, every single minute of every single game. So now I'm back to that position where I felt like my sophomore year of high school, where I took a step back and I'm like, I need to make some adjustments here. I need to make some life choices here. I need to make some basketball choices here because something is not adding up here, And that's when the hardest conversation I ever had was after the season was over, because now it was like your exit meeting, and coaching staff voiced their opinion that I should redshirt the next year. And I'm like, what? Like, I just didn't play the whole year this year. Like, I'm going to not play again next year. So that was where that was even worse, because now I'm like, all right, well, I felt like I worked my ass off this whole year. And now I'm going to have to sit out the whole year next year and not play at all. And I have never not played since third grade. How am I not going to play in a basketball game? So I worked on the whole summer, I lifted weights. I did everything I had to do. I actually played in the JSBL, the Jersey Shore League in Jersey. And I had a great summer down there. And it felt good because it felt like I could still play basketball. You know what I mean? Because like
Confidence is everything.
100%. And this is before, this is obviously before social media and all this stuff. So, you're kind of just trying to figure it out for yourself. You're trying to figure things out, and you're playing mental games with yourself. And it just felt good because I was playing against like Jason Thompson that played for the Kings and stuff like that.
Yep.
So we're playing against legit players. You know what I mean? Guys that play. So this is the hardest part. Playing down the Jersey Shore, that's Monmouth area. So now I'm playing against the guys from Monmouth that I didn't play against during the season, and I'm playing against them in a summer league, and I'm not, I wouldn't say killing them, but I'm playing well. So now I'm like, all right, well, something's not adding up here, because if I'm playing like this here, I'm averaging this many points or whatever, how could I not get the time and play in this game against these guys like this time, So the sophomore year comes, they redshirt me. I sat out. And then that was the hardest. That was probably the hardest year of my life. That was tough because
What did that year teach you? What did that year teach you?
Well, if it was 2023, I would have transferred. That's what would have happened. But it's not. It wasn't, and it was only 2007, so 2006. So it just taught you how to work even harder. You know what I mean? Like to persevere through. And I always knew the end goal, what it was, and what I wanted to do. And unfortunately, there's like the cliche saying that's like no, there's no shortcut to hard work. So I just had to work even harder. So I was in the weight room sometimes twice a day, working out and getting shots up and things like that. And I went from my freshman year of college, I was only 155 pounds at 6'4" and 6'5". And then I was going into my red shirt sophomore year, I was 175 pounds. So I gained 20 pounds of muscle in 2 years, and just getting more mature too. Because remember, I'm legit the right age to be a freshman in college, a sophomore in college. So like some of the guys that were coming in were from prep schools and stuff. So I'm also younger. So my body's starting to develop. But then that year that's when my career again took a little turn. It was great because I fought through it. And I became a vital part of the team the next year, where we won 23 games. So it was a big year for us at Wagner. We lost in the semifinals of the NEC tournament, but I played sometimes in down the stretch in big games where I hit big shots and stuff. So it just made that whole first 2 years like seem like they didn't happen. Where you fought through it and things like that. But again, that doesn't happen now. Now, whoever, that first year, I'm transferring. I'm out. You know what I mean? But for me, it just makes what's going on now even harder, because I didn't go through that. You know what I mean? I basically took the path of most resistance rather than less resistance, because it would have been very easy. But again, this different time frame. Like if someone would have told me to transfer then, a couple people who did. People were like, you should go somewhere else. You should go somewhere else. And I'm also saying, where am I going? I have no stats. I have nothing. There's no highlight tape of me playing right now, because this is 2006, and I actually was approached by CSI to transfer and come play at CSI. And at the time, they're Division III in CUNY. And I'm like, nah, there's no way. There's no way. I said, I gotta. And there's no disrespect to anyone that played.
Reputation is at stake at that point.
There's no disrespect to anyone that's ever played for them or with that program. But from being at the height that I was at, I'm not. That's not how I'm going out. I'm going out swinging. I'm not taking that road of resistance where I'm just going to go play somewhere and try to, because if I was at CSI, I would average 25 easy, no problem. But there was no way I was going to make that part of my bio. You know what I mean? My career was not going to take that turn to do that. Like I didn't do that at Farrell. I didn't take the easy way out and go somewhere else. I pushed through things. I fought for things, and and it worked for me. My senior year, I became the captain of the team, playing 25, 30 minutes a game. So, it was. I led my team in blocks per game. I was top 5 in the conference in blocks. So at the guard spot, So it was very different for me. I became, a screener, a shooter, a facilitator. I had assist turnover ratio 2-to-1 when I was playing. So it was a lot of things that I did well. It just needed more time to get ready to do it consistently over a season, and that was a tough thing for me for sure.
After reading through your bio and then, going through it, fine tooth, comb and nail on the Wagner page where the full history is shown. I was contemplating, because usually, it usually turned into having a standout year. But the fact that you didn't leave, the fact that you persevered, the fact that you came back and before you left was captain, and you did, lead the team in blocks from that area, that for me personifies greatness, right? Because I'm looking at it from the overall picture, from the overall point of view. Mind you, I'm already in a mind state of talking about kids transferring and people leaving, and you're a fine example of someone persevering. Now we know if it's today, it's a whole different time, and you leave, right? But then again, like you said back then, even if you leave, what do you got to show for it?
Right. And I become one of those 40% that didn't get picked up by anybody.
That's right.
I become the person that someone said to me, get in my ear and said, "Hey, you're unhappy, you're not playing a lot, you need to leave." And then I leave, and now I have nowhere else. I'm going to CSI. I have to. Because if not, I can't there's nowhere else for me to go. You know what I mean? I can go to JUCO, I can go wherever, but I'm already playing. My clock has started. I can't go anywhere else. I can go backwards. So you got to find somewhere else to play. So and listen, that's, again, we're very different places now. People think that they have to make those adjustments and make those calls to do those things. And also too, unfortunately at the time, I was a little more realistic than other one too. Like, I'm sure right now there's a kid in the NEC that's a freshman that thinks he's going to go play in the NBA. Which is listen, that's perfectly fine. That
you should dream
to each your own. But unfortunately for me, I kind of realized that, listen, my cap is going to be playing overseas if I want to. You know what I mean? If I want to play overseas, I could probably play overseas. There's a lot of leagues over there that make no money, and there's a lot of leagues that make some money. So I could probably go play overseas. But I kind of realized too that I'm using the college as much as they're using me. I'm gonna get this degree. And because I redshirted, they even paid for my master's degree. So I got 2 degrees in 5 years and I graduated. I had a college graduation. I got an award for the highest GPA in one of the programs I was in. So, I won. You know what I mean? Like, even though like my career did not turn out the way I wanted to in terms of basketball, I wouldn't have changed anything, because my academic was always the top of my reasons why I went to where I went to, because we didn't even talk about this before. On Staten Island, I'm not supposed to go to Farrell. I'm supposed to go to Peters. I'm not supposed to go to Farrell. So I went to Farrell because that's where I felt comfortable. That's where I felt the most at home. That's what I did. So Wagner was kind of very similar to that. I felt like I was at home, as I technically was, but I just felt like that was where I had to be, So at the end of the day, I'm sitting here, I'm like, you know what? It's a lot of things that could have went differently. Absolutely. But now I'm not sitting here talking to you maybe, in 2023. So there's a lot of things that could change and go separate ways, and all that stuff like that. So I got into teaching after that, and helped a lot of kids get into college playing, where maybe if I'm playing somewhere else, I don't help them. You know what I mean? So and that to me meant more. So it is what it is, but still around the game, still love it. So that's
listen, Daniel Wader said, great message about working harder and not taking the easy way out. Salute, Daniel. Listen.
That's Coach Dan. I don't know if you know Coach Dan. Coach Dan is at St. Edmunds, and
yes.
Again, another guy, fantastic program, gets guys to where they're supposed to go, and they learn the right way to do things. So,
and he advocates for his kids too. So 100%. Salute Coach Dan. Coach Dan. Yes,
Coach Dan's a man.
Definitely one of the best. Look, legendary area, Staten Island, right? And I'm saying this because you know, us here in the boroughs sometimes think that Staten Island is a whole different world, right? We just right across the water. And getting back to just the CSI moment, Aaron Goldstein, when people used to check in on me and ask me where he's going, and I tell them CSI, they couldn't believe it. And I would tell people, I said, listen, y'all need to look at CSI's history. Aaron Goldstein is going to be a perfect fit there, and he's going to continue to play and become legendary, right? Because that's what you guys do. Speaking of the Northeast Conference, our last NBA player was Charles Jones, if I'm correct.
Yep.
And I think we had the leading scorer in the country a couple of years ago at Bryant.
He's nowhere. Right. And Charles Jones, good coach as well now at LIU.
Yeah.
He's one of the first college games I ever saw in person. So I went to go watch Wagner College play against LIU when he was playing at LIU, and he had like 55 points against Wagner and LIU. Absolutely insane. But I recently met him when I was working with the NBA doing some stuff, and great guy too. But he you know, that and that's how hard it is, and people don't understand that. You know what I mean? They just think that you know, if I go to this place and this place and this place, this is the blueprint for me to get to where I have to get to. And unfortunately, like, I try to be as realistic as I possibly can with a lot of the kids I'm working with and a lot of kids that I'm, you know, around, where, you know, your first goal should be to play however high you want to play. It's perfectly fine. But then you have to realize that at some point you're going to be done playing basketball. And it's just any sport. It's not just basketball, but any sport. And you have to now set yourself up for life rather than the next season, because that's not happening anymore. You know what I mean? That's it. Game is over. That's correct. Absolutely.
Game over. It's going to be over. Sooner or
Absolutely.
later, it's going to be like at the end of the day, right? And the reason why I talk about these different transitions, because I believe we all go through different transitions in our life, right? From the time we're crawling till we learn how to walk, till we get in potty trained, learn how to go to the bathroom, learn to cross the street for ourselves, all of these different transitions. Well, for a ball player, it's about starting over.
Yep.
No matter what level you're on, you got to start over. And I remember, you know, had a guest on here. We were just talking about his career, and, you know, he was Mr. Basketball, New York State, one of the best players, Texas history, leading scorer there, and get to the NBA, and he got to start over. And a lot of people that are not built for that, because the ego is such a powerful thing. And sometimes if we're not kind of mentored in that position, it won't turn out the way we think it will turn out. You know, your transition into the real world, how was it for you?
Easy. Probably the easiest transition I made in my entire life, because I felt like there was nothing that the game has not provided for me that I'm going to counter. So, for instance, like I actually brought this up the other day in my class with the kids I'm teaching. I'm teaching 8th grade right now, math. And I talk about it in my class, even to the kids I just met. I told them, I was like, this is, you know, some people's, you know, one of the biggest fears in life is people talking in front of other people. Like, public speaking is like the number one fear people have. People rather die than public speak. And I was a little bit like that. I took some college classes where I did like some public speaking classes and stuff. But, you know, like, if I went on an interview for a job and I had to talk one-on-one with somebody, that's so much easier than playing in front of 20,000 people. You know what I mean? So, like, that's more nerve-wracking. Like, I played, you know, in college, we played against, I started at Kansas State. I started at BYU. I started at Nevada. And you got people abusing you, making fun of you, you know, slang, or, you know, anything you could possibly imagine, slandering you. It doesn't matter. Are you telling me for an interview, like, I talk to one person? That's it? And talk about things that I know and enjoy? That's simple. That's easy. You know what I mean? So, and even in the teaching world, like, you get observed and things like that. And, you know, it's supposed to be a high impact, you know, high stressful environment. I'm like, dude, like, I can care less. Like, you can come in my classroom every single day if you want to come watch me teach. I don't care. Like my classroom is exactly the same, no matter if you're here or not. And that's probably the easiest thing for me where, stress levels in terms of jobs and work and stuff like that, that's easy. The hardest thing I've becoming now is being a dad. That's the hardest thing. That's just on a different level because now you're in charge of doing what our parents did, which was raise, humans that are, respectful and do the right thing. You know what I mean? That's the hardest job on the planet. But that's been a hard transition because you have to learn to you just got to worry about how your kid is and how they're doing rather than the people around them because you have to make sure that they're doing the right thing so that they could maybe rub off on those people who do the right thing. So that's probably the hardest thing I've had to do as transitioning into like life after basketball. But even those times, you sit with your wife, you talk, and you figure things out, you brainstorm things, and you work out problems. Like but again, the problem solving comes from being able to remember a scouting report and be able to you know uh, perfectly execute a game plan. Those are the things that you do every day from freshman year through senior year of college, and now every single day you just got a game plan. You know what I mean? You got to make a scouting report out, know what's going on, and follow through to the game plan. But that's the one advice I always give kids that I'm working with is that this is going to prepare you for whatever you decide to do moving forward. Like I'm a teacher, but there are guys I know that are firemen and cops and sanitation workers and guys that are working in financial districts and stuff like that, and their lives are just as stressful. But because of those experiences they've had playing ball and high level environments, life's easy because you go through that stuff already. It's
That's
done.
right. One of the reasons why I interview some of the players after the games for that reason, so they can have that experience.
Right.
This year, I'm gonna add another component to it because usually I always interview the winning team, right? Players got to learn to get interviewed when they lose as well. They have to be able to hold their composure because you're playing at a high level, right? You're playing in a market. You can play in a small market, but you're going to have 2 or 3 people there that's going to interview you.
Yep.
When you're having an off day, the microphone is in your face.
Yep.
They're there. They want to know. And I think that would do nothing but kind of help our kids prepare for situations later on. I'm glad I took the step out to try to interview the kids and the coaches. I don't bring them on the show as much because I need you to have a story to tell.
100%.
Right? And you need guys like yourself to come up here and share some of these lessons so these kids will get them. So, man, definitely appreciate you. Before we leave, man, I just want to ask you a few more questions, man. And I'm going to go back to one of the top players in the city that's playing for you guys at Poly, Connor Ego. How can you guys give him the maximum exposure for these next couple of years before, the vultures start coming out? And I know they already been calling him.
They're already out.
Connor, stay where you at, fam. You good. You with Doug, you with Coach. Y'all good.
We appreciate that, Glenn. But just do what we do. You know what I mean? Like the funny thing is that everyone that's at different places think they have more connections than the next guy. And unfortunately for some of those guys, I have way more connections than some of those guys. I'm just not.
Yo, hold on. Talk. Yo, and I'm going to say this, right? And I'm going to talk much right now. Because a lot of you guys have no clue who Pooh know. And we talk about to y'all street handlers and y'all dudes that's out there, y'all making y'all moves and y'all think y'all have no clue. Y'all have no clue at all. No one knows who you know.
Yep.
Right? That's why I say a kid who, like Connor, who needs to stay with someone like yourself and the program there at Poly because it would benefit him later on.
Right. And that's part of the it's not even a sell. It's just part of the reason why we do what we do, because for instance, he's heard from 10 to 15 Division I schools already. You know what I mean? And they're just going to come watch him play. They're going to come watch him work out, and they're going to continue to watch his progress, just like everyone else does. But the problem with someone like Connor is he's a safe bet, Connor, because what you see is what you're going to get, and his potential is there, but he's not. I wouldn't say he's a finished product because he's got a lot of work to do still to get to his game to another level, so that he can play at a level that I think he can play at. But his footwork is phenomenal. He can shoot the ball. He can get to the basket. He can post up. He's got a lot of game to him already. But one of the best things is he's got a 3.9 GPA, and he's at Poly Prep High School, which is one of the best academic schools in New York City, New York State. So that's gonna, he's heard from every single Ivy League school already. You know what I mean? That's a no-brainer. And then he's hearing from the Patriot League. He's hearing from a couple of A-10 schools. So and there's not much more that we can do other than just continue to plug away at our connections. Where Coach Edgar is a phenomenal basketball coach. He coached Division I basketball for 20 years. So that man picks up a phone. People are answering on the other line. You know what I mean? There's a big difference between someone thinking they know somebody or saying they have a connection to somebody when they have to call 4 people to get to that connection.
Facts.
Where we're calling and texting the coaches directly and know them personally. Where I had a coach. I'm not going to mention the school because I don't. It's not right. But I had a coach last year that I was speaking to, and I was like, I sent him all Connor stuff, things like that, and he was very impressed. And he said, "Listen, we'll be watching him over the next year or so." He's like, "I'm not ready to make a decision on a 2025 kid because I got to still figure out who I have coming in next year."
That's right.
But or this upcoming year in terms of the transfer portal and stuff like that. But he's like, I'm nowhere near thinking about a 2025 kid yet. But the second that we're starting 2025s, I'll be out there watching them. So there's all those scenarios and things happening behind the scenes that people don't really know about. And I usually don't boast about it or say about it because it's my business. You know what I mean? But at the same time, if kids want to leave to go somewhere else, that's fine. Just hope the coaches are doing the same thing for you there. You know what I mean? Like it's, and depending on what school you're going to or transferring to or leaving to, like you said before, you may become one of many rather than one of one. So, and we have a couple other good players at our school that are going to be seen this year that you're going to take, Kareem Kamara, who was our point guard last year, who'll be back. He's only a junior also. He's another high academic kid that will have a great college career wherever he decides to go when it's all said and done. He's a New Heights kid.
You don't turn the ball over either.
Nope. He's completely steady, steady guy, controls the tempo of the game. And then we got a bunch of other guys that no one even knows. So like this kid, Hank Ford that we have, he's very quiet. He barely played for us last year because he was only a sophomore, but he's gonna have an elevated role probably this year. And there's other guys that are gonna step in that are gonna be ready to play. And again, they all have 3.9, 4.0 GPAs. They do the right thing. They have, if you look at their social media, they have nothing on their social media. Nothing. They have no pictures of
how many offers.
Yeah, no, and even the other stuff where like who they're hanging out with,
right?
The stuff outside of sports where like they're hanging out at a place or something. Their social medias are clean because they're trying to they have a bigger thing, bigger plan ahead. You know what I mean? They're not worried about what's going on after school and all that stuff. They're worried about more stuff that's going on inside of school. So, we have plenty of guys that are going to be seen over the next couple of years that are going to be, hopefully become, not, I wouldn't say household names, but like well-known names in the city for basketball. And we're just trying to, like, we have some good scrimmages and games lined up this year, again, just to make sure that we get that recognition that we deserve in terms of being one of the top teams around, which I think we're going to be again. And that's all we can do is just kind of schedule the way we can schedule and hope and pray that the kids that we have or kids that want to be there or kids that are unhappy somewhere else say, you know what, listen, I want to give Poly a chance. So, that's all we're about right now. And how do we do that? We just continue to plug away at our connections and, make the phone calls necessary to be able to help these kids out.
Remember the name, Connor Ego. For all my basketball heads out there, if you remember Jack Sigma,
yeah, Yeah.
He's Jack Sigma with a handle.
Yeah. Phenomenal post work, phenomenal footwork.
Jack Sigma.
Yep.
And
Phenomenal.
that jump shot from here, that's what remind me of Jack.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And you're not touching it. Great, great rebounder. And he's one of the kids I'm very high on, Coach. So
yeah, I appreciate that. We appreciate that.
Sure.
For sure.
If you could change one thing about your basketball journey, what would it be?
Bro. I probably would say I would have just waited a little longer to commit to a college. That's really it. Because I feel like if I would have waited a little longer, I may have been put in a situation that could have been a little bit better for me in terms of style of play or something like that. And I was young, so I think that would probably be the only thing that I would change. But again, I feel like, like I said before, I feel like we all go through everything that we go through for a reason. So, in hindsight, if I stay home, if I don't stay home on Staten Island, do I not get a job out of college teaching? Do I not, meet my future wife? Do I not have my kids? So there's a lot of things that, as a 36-year-old now that you take for granted that you're like, yeah, if I go back, like I always said, it was such a cliche thing, but I always said to my kids when I was coaching at Wagner, I was like, man, I'd give anything to go back and be you for one day just to play in a high school game again and, experience those things and all that kind of stuff. But, I don't know if, especially now, I don't know if I want to go through it all over again because of all the things that are different now.
You got to play in this era.
It's very different. It's very different. And that's funny because we were talking before about like, the style of play I had and stuff like that, which was very different for, a kid like me back then. And I ran into legendary Coach Book Richardson at an AU tournament. We were talking, we were chopping it up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's an amazing coach, and we were talking and we were chopping it up. And I was with one of my guys that I'm friends with, and I always he was an ex-player of mine, so I was always messing with them and telling how good I was and just messing with them. And Book said to him, he's like, "Do you understand if this guy played today, that he'd be at an ACC school?" And my friend looked at him like, crazy, and he's like, the highlight tapes that he would have had back then, and the things that he could do, he could jump through the roof, he could shoot the three. He's like, he would have been a high level recruit at this point of the life and how basketball's changed. But I don't think I would have done really well with the social media era in terms of being able to concentrate and focus and work and do all this stuff at the same time. I feel like these kids have so many distractions that they could easily fall into. And, I feel like because I didn't have things like that growing up, I feel like that helped me a lot. I wasn't like into video games. I wasn't into things like that. I was always out playing sports. So I think that's one of the hardest things to do is to try to picture yourself playing now and dealing with all the stuff that goes on now. So it's a little different, but, I wouldn't change much. That would be the only thing I'd change for sure.
Got you. Well, now we're going to get into our top five.
Top five.
All right. Top five players you played with.
Kyle McInerney. And then AAU, I was very lucky. Had some really good teammates. Levance Fields.
Ooh, definitely got to get you on the show.
Levance,
sure.
Unbelievable basketball player.
Yeah, still playing too.
Still playing. Yep, still killing it. So probably Kyle, Levance. Man, that my AU team was completely stacked. I'd say Jesse Sapp, who was at Georgetown. Curtis Kelly, who was at K-State and UConn.
Yeah.
Is that how many is that? 4?
Mm-hmm.
That's 4. Oh, man. And I'm gonna say my boy Steve Rossiter that I played with at Farrell, because he was with me for all the high school runs that we had and stuff like that. So and again, he was a heck of a player. Played for Davidson, so I definitely shout him out as being one of my top 5 teammates.
For sure. Top 5 guys you played against.
Also Kyle, definitely on that list. One of the hardest matchups I always had.
I think you know what? I'm gonna put Cal up Friday. That's what I'm gonna do. What happened was he was supposed to go on a long time ago, but we did it when I was doing it on Instagram.
Yeah.
And it's great because his side came out perfect. My side came out crazy. So I'll just put his side up and you'll just hear my voice. But
Yeah,
you'll see Cal McElhinney the whole time. So it'll be worth
phenomenal.
it. Great
Phenomenal
stories.
story. Yeah, phenomenal story for him too. So he's
That's
definitely he's
One
definitely my
more.
top one. Then we had like top 5 guys. My hardest matchup in the city every year was always Saquon Stone from Seattle.
Yeah.
Saquon
He's the assistant coach, right?
Yep. Saquon was super tough.
And you guys got the coach. Was y'all coaching with each other, right? Oh no, you was on this year. Yes.
And so we were on the same, and we were also on the same AAU team.
Wow.
So that team was completely. It was insane how good we were. So those 2 guys for sure, because Saquon was my position, and then I'd have to say in college I played against Michael Beasley, which was insane at K-State. I had a guard, which was a nightmare. I had a guard, Luke Babbitt, who played at Nevada, and then when he got drafted by the Trailblazers, I think he had like a 7-year career in the league, where he was playing with a couple different teams, but he was really good at Nevada. And then I'd say probably last guy maybe Edgar Sosa.
Edgar Sosa, need him on the show for sure. Been trying to track him down for the longest.
Yeah.
Man, he was so tough, right?
Oh, so tough. That Rice, because we played. So the hardest part about back in the day being in Staten Island is we weren't in a division. So there was no, like for us, it was not a double A, a single A, a B. There was nothing like that. We just all played each other on Staten Island. And then whoever won Staten Island went to play in the city. So if you were the top team, you played in the double A. If you were the second and third team, you played in the A. And if you were the fourth team, you played in the B. So every year from my sophomore year to my senior year, we won. So we had to go represent in the city.
Wow.
But we're now the whole year we're not playing any double A teams.
That's right. So you don't know what to expect.
No idea. Unfortunately I knew what to expect because I was playing against these guys all the time, and then my teammates didn't. So I never forget my sophomore year. We go play at Rice, and they had Russell Robinson, Shagari Aline. It was absolutely insane. We played. We also played that same year. We played against St. Ray's, who had Gavin Grant and Brian Lang. So just the teams were unbelievable. But by the senior year, we were very good. So we became a team that the city teams didn't want to play against because we were kind of like sleepers, where like they'd rank us really low because we played against Staten Island teams all year, and then we'd be like the bottom team, but then we play against like one of the best teams in the first round, and we would have the opportunity to maybe make an upset. And my senior year, we lost in overtime to Rice.
Wow.
So we lost in overtime. We played
a moral victory for sure.
Yeah, and unfortunately for us, we didn't want the moral one. We wanted the real one. You know what I mean? So we they were loaded. They had Kashif Pratt, they had Edgar, they had Curtis, they had a bunch of guys, and they were stacked. Tasco Brown, they were really good, and we lost in overtime by like 5, and we had them. We were so close. We had them, and then that was like the archdiocese. Then we went to the city playoffs. We actually beat St. Francis Prep in the first round. And we lost. We wound up losing to Xaverian in the next round, and then Xaverian wound up winning the state that year. They beat Danny Green in Long Island in the championship game. So,
wow.
Yeah, I mean that year in those few years in New York City basketball were really good. 2003 to 2006, that was a really good time for New York City basketball, where there's a lot of good players in the Catholic and public league, and it was very competitive. To any night you could play against a Division I player or potential NBA player, future NBA player. So it was a really tough time to play in the city, but also some people respect you a little bit more too because you grew up in that era and played against those kind of guys. So definitely was a fun time.
Definitely one of the reasons why you're on the show, Coach. For sure. Play to get some more. Top 5 players on Staten Island.
Right now?
History. No,
Oh,
history. Yeah.
Okay. So Kyle McInerney. From what I hear, like I said, I saw in person as an older man, but Greg Pedro, phenomenal basketball player.
As we call him, the king of Staten Island. He did the impossible.
Yeah, unbelievable. So those two guys definitely are probably 1A and 1B for me in terms of like, level of play and career and everything. And then you got some guys that like I didn't get to play against. So like it's hard to rank guys you never played
need
against,
you just the people that
so,
you know. Listen, I don't want to get you in trouble here, right? I don't want you guessing. I want the people that you saw and that you go, you know what?
Yeah.
Definitely need to be there.
Yeah. So for no specific order, but I would put Halil Kanasevic up there. So Halil Kanasevic played for St. Joe's and Curtis, and then he went to St. Joe's in Philly, and then had a cup of coffee in the NBA with some summer league teams, and then played professionally for 7 years overseas. So his footwork, some of the best footwork I've ever seen on a basketball player, let alone a big man. He was like 6'8", 270, so he was a big boy. But he was a phenomenal basketball player from Staten Island. And then I'd probably say Lawrence Bora. Lawrence Bora was a really good basketball player that I played against as well. Tough matchup. He went to Utah and played at Utah. And then let's see, probably gonna leave someone off. It's gonna be annoying, but it was a bunch of guys that all kind of did the same thing. But one guy that doesn't get enough love is Ryan Rossiter. So Ryan Rossiter is my teammate Steve's younger brother, and he played at Siena and led the country in rebounds per game and during last 2 years of his college career. And he's been playing in Japan for the last 11 years.
Wow.
So he's shout him out, Ryan Rossiter.
Salute to those guys. And listen, now that you've been on the show, you can text me up and be like, yo, I spoke to my guy, told him about the show. He actually saw it, said he's interested, and that's how we're going to make this happen, man.
For sure.
I want to say thank you, man, for coming on the show. Appreciate your story. Appreciate you giving me a hand this year. It may be a little bit different how we do it this year. It was a great experience during that whole time representing for Mr. Konchowski. But whatever way how we do it this year, I'm definitely going to ask you to be a part of it. So
for sure. Anything I can do to help, you know that.
Definitely, man. And keep me posted on your season. I'm definitely going to be there in December. All right, I got to be in the house for that, man. Give your family well.
Appreciate it,
wife and the kids, man, and I'll see you.
Thank
all
you,
right?
man. Appreciate it, man. Thank you very much,
brother.
man. Appreciate you.
Appreciate it. And listen, man, I want to say this to you, man, before you get off here. Not only you're a great coach, but you're definitely one of the best players in New York City history. So salute to you, brother.
Appreciate that, Glenn. Thank you, man.
No doubt. Appreciate you. Wow. Man. When life presents you with challenges, especially when everybody is expecting to see something different and you're faced with that challenge that's put in front of you, the best thing to do is fight through it. The best thing to do is to fight through it. I know nowadays everybody's telling, kids to pack up and leave, go to another school, start over. But sometimes it's cool to thug it out, figure out what kind of person you are, and to put yourself in a position to succeed no matter what. When we talk about one of the best scorers on Staten Island's history, one of the best scorers in New York State, we got to check out and listen to my guy, Doug Elwell's story. 1,400 points, 4-year starter. He made history at Monsignor Farrell. And for them to come back this year and win a state championship and for him to be at a school in Brooklyn, Poly Prep, and they go undefeated and win a state championship. That just shows you he comes from a legacy of greatness. And now that he's coaching, he's continuing that success. So salute to my guy, Coach Doug Elwell. Thank you for everybody for tuning in. Salute AB Money, my guy, Aaron Goldstein, Coach Daniel. Way to appreciate you. Coach E, appreciate you. Who else is on the check-in? Neil Barrow, Chords, Ayatollah Beats. We out of here. I am your host, Glenn Pooh Harding. You've been watching Basketball Heads Live, the podcast, because we are the official home for New York City basketball. Peace.